Okay, so now we've talked about what is water and where it comes from and what happens to it. And we've talked about how land and water interacts. I want to actually talk about what the issues are with water. So this is what we call an infographic. You may have come across these previously. An infographic is a way where graphics are used to give you information, hence infographic, information in a graphic form. So graphic means picture or representation. So here we can see they've got 6 images of people and only 1 coloured in. So 1 in 6 people do not have access to safe, fresh water. All right, so that's how they've represented that. This is a circle and they've got 80% of it coloured in. Of wastewater is discharged untreated. What that means is 80% of the sewage worldwide goes into waterways completely untreated of humans. Obviously 100% of animal waste really goes into the waterways untreated, but human waste is going in untreated when we have the option to do that. Here is a really interesting way of representing this. So all of these little water droplets represent the water around the world. And here you can see that the blue ones, the pale blue ones, are salt water. The grey ones are fresh water in the ice caps. And so only on a percentage basis, only 1 little drop is actually readily available fresh water. So this is a part of the problem with water in the world, is that most of it is salt water. And we can't drink salt water, and that's a massive problem. Okay, so this is about how climate is changing, and this is expected forecast of numbers that 1.8 billion people will be living in regions with absolute water scarcity by 2025. So that's only 4 years away. So this is 2010, so this is a bit old, this data. Sorry about that. So I'm not sure if that's still current. Okay, 70% of existing fresh water is drawn for irrigation in agriculture. So if you remember that irrigation channel that I showed you in the last video about land and water use, that's what I'm talking about, is 70% of water goes into that. So that's a bit of a problem if we need it for drinking, but we do need the irrigation in order to have food. So that then becomes a problem in itself. So down here you can see there's 187 figures, and this represents the children that die every hour from lack of access to clean water. Now clean water is the important bit there, because what happens is there's a range of deaths that occur from mainly dysentery, which is a disease that you have that causes a lot of diarrhea. And over here you can see that 88% of diarrheal deaths are due to a lack of access to sanitation facilities. That means that water and sewage are so interlinked in some countries that when you drink water, you're actually drinking sufficient sewage to make you so sick that you actually die. And here you can see this is Africa, and these countries that are highlighted in white, they are countries where people have to travel for more than 30 minutes on a round trip to collect water. So they're countries where, we're lucky, we can turn on a tap and get water. These people actually have to walk for at least 15 minutes out and at least 15 minutes back. We're carrying their water. So they actually don't have water access through a tap. All right, so this is a concept of something called water security. And this is an idea that's been happening in the United Nations for a while, and it's a part of some of their projects and their goals. So they've got sustainability development goals, and this is water security is one of them. If you're interested, you can go and have a look at the United Nations website. So what they're saying here is that we need to have drinking water and for human well-being, but we also need to be aware of our ecosystems. We also need to be aware that climate and weather-related hazards are changing how we interact with water, and how economic activities are involved with water. So that's actually about how we are having an economic impact with water and how water costs us and what we're doing with that. So they see that the water problem in the world is actually 4 aspects, and making sure that we address 4 aspects. There's a lot of costs involved with things like massive storms and floods and droughts and all that sort of things, which is all water-based. So the question is how can we manage that and what can we do about it? And so here are some options that they actually talk about there. I'm not going to go into that, but I just wanted you to understand that water is not just about us, it is about a whole range of these other factors as well. So what can we actually do, and what actually is happening that's making water problematic in the world? Well, here you can see upstream the water's fairly clean, And then as we move through the various aspects of human influence, you can see it starts to get dirty. All right, so that's what that's representing there. One of the biggest things we've done is deforestation. And what that means is that, as I talked about in intensive and non-intensive farming, that you move the soil actually, if it doesn't have enough trees and enough grass growing on it, this topsoil actually just washes away and it washes into the waterways. The other thing that happens is when we have crops and we fertilize them and we spray them for pesticides and things like that, that also then washes off and goes into the waterway. The other thing is that when we have animals, they actually do also cause erosion, and as I said earlier, their waste just goes straight into our water supply, but we do treat our water supply in Australia, and so that then washes into the waterways. And then of course now we're coming into housing and cities, and we're actually going to do an exercise on this around the school about what rubbish goes into our waterways. And you may have heard of the plastic problem that we've got in the oceans. So this is all coming from the cities, and when you throw a piece of rubbish on the ground, and when I throw a piece of rubbish on the ground, it's going straight into the waterway. So that's a massive, massive problems. Okay, here we've also got how again, I talked about the image of Sydney and how when we build houses and things, that water is no longer absorbed into the soil in that area. It actually just runs off straight into the waterways, and again, that's problematic. So this is why we do water treatment. This is why we do water treatment, and then it costs more money to have that water because we have to treat it, and then that actually has impacts as well. So that's some of the issues we have in relation to water.